nature?
Well, I try not to get too tinfoil hat, right? But I mean, another wave comes through, right? So it's lambda, gamma, whatever, instead of delta. And so then what we have are special hours for shopping. Show your QR code if you want to shop during these hours. Otherwise, if you don't have a QR code, you have to come in after 10 p.m. Or maybe restaurants, you've got special sections for people who don't have a QR code. The whole thing just reeks of government intrusion.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Representative Becker. Whoops, I'm sorry. Senator Bakke, sorry.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Becker, you really, are you insinuating that you think that the sole purpose for this Q&R code is so that the state of North Dakota can say no to one group of people and yes to another? You don't see it as a medical service that's provided to the people? I'm just finding it really hard to understand how someone could look at it that way. So help me understand.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Bakke, I'd love to help you understand, and I think it's a very good question. No, it is not my belief that the intent is to do the things that I've described as what I'm concerned about. The intent, although I will disagree, the intent is not medically related in nature. The intent is for convenience in travel. That's the way the RFP is included, right? What I am suggesting is that there is inevitable trending where government is involved when we have a database, and if we want, we can go down a list throughout history in which government originally had good intention, and then with data on their citizens went down a path that was maybe not so beneficent. And my concern is not the intent, but the consequences.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you, Representative Becker. Is there any other legislators with proposed amendments? First, okay. So we've covered that. Anyone else here in the committee has some proposed amendments at this time? Oh, I thought there'd be more. Okay, committee, what time is it? 10 after 11, huh? Representative Hanson.
Sorry, I was a little late for raising my hand. Mr. Chairman, I would propose removing the overstrike in section 1 related to higher education. So when we're compiling all the different proposed amendments on one of the Christmas tree versions, section 1, lines 17 through 21, I would like to remove the overstrike so that the State Board of Higher Education and all our various universities would be among the exemptions. Thank you.
Okay, discussion on that amendment, proposed amendment, I should say. Senator Bakke.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I would agree with that simply because I think we have a lot of students from outside of North Dakota that are coming in. And I think that we have an entirely, when you have international students and you have students from other parts of the country, I think it's important that they're allowed to do some of the testing and to make sure that we aren't causing issues as far as bringing in other varieties of COVID, or there aren't some of these things going on. So I think it's important to know who's interacting in those close quarters because they are in dorms and in classrooms and those sorts of things.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Are there any further suggestions? I mean, we don't need an actual amendment here at this point. Senator Lee.
May I suggest that we look at Senator Anderson's amendment because particularly the new subsection 3, which would be on page 3 after line 20, which provides a little better definition, as Representative Porter had talked about earlier as well, and Representative Weiss, a provider of developmental disability services or a provider of healthcare services, including a long-term care provider, basic care provider, and assisted living provider, may require an employee or prospective employee to be vaccinated against COVID as a condition of employment. If an employer required vaccination is required under the subsection, the employer shall allow a medical exemption and a religious exemption as provided under federal law. It would encompass that DD group. So I'd like to bring that
Well,
up for discussion.
Okay, just to be clear here again, where he's adding this has to do with the employee mandate, not with the providing services,
Right.
which was a concern for those in the bubble.
Correct.
So we still haven't necessarily addressed that section of those
Yep.
so-called whoever, oh, that was DOCR that called it the bubble. So, that those that are in the bubble that don't have options, at least I hopefully you can't just decide you want to leave the prison because you're scared of COVID, but at least I sure hope that's not the case, or we have other issues going on. And really, likewise, even though technically you can leave your long-term care facility, but you really, in reality, you really can't in most cases. There's a reason why you're in there. Same as a DD provider, et cetera. So that's a little different, but Representative Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And really, the only difference, between Senator Anderson's amendment and the amendment that I presented was the inclusion of philosophical or moral beliefs. And that language is currently the language that we use for all of our K-12 education. And it allows a little broader objection to vaccinations, no matter which vaccination you may want in the K-12 arena. It's only allowing inside of the COVID-19 vaccination that arena. So it really from a subsection, I think that what we decide should be the same for everyone. And that either everyone gets a religious or medical exemption, or everyone gets a religious, philosophical, medical, or moral objection. But I don't think we should create two subgroups inside of who has to get vaccinated. But I do think that we need to set a standard, and it's good for everyone.
Senator Lee.
Thank you. And I was focused more, I shouldn't have read the whole thing. I was just reading it for those who didn't have the amendment in front. I was thinking more of the first sentence, first portion, yes. First sentence, which talks about a more inclusive definition of DD services. So
Okay.
let me clarify that. And then, because I think it's two different issues to discuss
Right.
if somebody wants to discuss. Okay.
Sounds good. So everybody have that. Representative Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I might ask a question, either of Senator Anderson or Senator Lee, would this amendment, the paragraph where we're adding this, would that apply to public health units? Are they considered a provider of healthcare services?
I would certainly assume so.
Well, this is, I would hope that it would, yes, and that's what I visited with Representative Porter's at the beginning on his amendments. I just want to make sure that it's there, but I think you may be right that it would cover any provider of health services. Because their connection is they get, right now about COVID, for example, they get federally funded vaccines from the federal government, but they are not getting money for their operating costs.
Okay. So further discussion on what we have in front of us so far. We have several amendments. Kind of quiet this morning. 4 days wore us out. It has been a long week.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Anderson.
I think through all this, one of the things you have to realize is that we need to continue to do business in North Dakota. We need to continue to provide health care. And we need to be careful about setting too many barriers in the way of doing that because we're afraid of something that happens to be happening right now.
Okay.
So
Okay, if there's no further discussion at this point, committee, we will break. And so I would encourage both the Senate and the House to, take a look at these amendments, have some further discussion. We'll come back after the floor session. I don't know, you guys might go for a while, I suppose. You'll have all our bills from this morning. Or no. You'll have all our bills from yesterday. We didn't have much yesterday. You did message them immediately. Okay, so you'll probably be fairly busy. We won't be, but we'll come back. Yeah. We'll make an announcement on both chambers, but it'll probably be 15 to 30 minutes after the last chamber adjourns. We'll come back and further our discussion and come up with some resolutions to get these bills passed out. We still have 1510 and 1514. Yes, thank you. And 1514 that we will resolve yet this afternoon or evening, depending on how things go. So
Or Sunday or Monday.
I don't like your attitude, Representative Doctor. So we are recessed until announcement on the floor. Thank you, committee.